Good morning and welcome to Health Talk here on AM 1270 and 96.5 FM KXBX. And he's alive and well and in the studio after a 2-week hiatus in the land of the tropical breezes and coconuts. And
hi, Paul.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, aloha.
Aloha. Yeah, I didn't think you were going to come back.
Well, it's pretty tempting to stay over there. We were in Kauai, and we have a timeshare over there, and the weather was perfect. It was in the 80s every day, and I got some swimming in and got some relaxation time in. Met some people that live over there now from Lake County and the Lakeport area, and had lunch with them. And one of the ski racers that used to compete up here with the Australian guys and some of the Lake County people, he has a deli in Kaloa, so we went out to his ranch, and he had goats, and he had beef, and he had chickens and dogs, and none of them would bite you, but every one of them bit me. I stuck my hand into the horse, and he took a chunk out of my hand. The billy goat was there, and he had great big old horns, and he took a little chunk, and then I forget what the third. Oh, they had a pig they called Gracie. She nibbled on me a little bit. So
you're a tasty guy.
I was, it must have been the old farm stink from being raised in Iowa, but they were friendly bites. But beautiful place. A lot of people there without jobs, and of course the cost of living is so high over there. A lot of people are working 2 or 3 jobs, and went into some pharmacies and checked those out. Very similar to our pharmacies here, and quite a small town atmosphere in Poipu Beach and the area. That small independent pharmacies and small independent businesses are well accustomed to the local community, and they do very well with the loyalty that the Hawaiians have to their own. So a great visit, a great place to be, and sad to have left there, but you have a job and you got to get the job done, and it was nice to have the break, and now we're back. So things to cover. We talk all the time about the opiate thing, and it has gotten significant. In fact, I just heard something on the radio station when I was coming in here about how even the president has addressed the opiate epidemic. And Paul and I were just talking about this article of a star athlete that was on the internet from North Carolina. And he had a wrestling injury. Yeah. And I forget, he was a sophomore or junior. He was doing well in school and everything. And he had an injury, and he was prescribed opiates. And at that time, he was given some sort of hydrocodone or oxycodone. And one of the sad statistics is a lot of the people that become addicted to opiates are when they're athletes, and they have an injury. And I'm quite familiar with that whole episode. But when I was an athlete, we took cortisone shots instead of pain medications. But in this case, this young man had quit going to class, and his parents had gone down to Florida. He moved down to Florida and taken his car down, and were ready to take, so he could adjust to the area. He had gone through rehab, I believe, and had been doing fine. And he started doing all kinds of things that would help him secure more narcotics, eventually got into heroin, and there in North Carolina, where he was originally from, was really hard hit by the opioid crisis. And, this is one of the American cities with the highest rate of opiate abuse in the nation. The study found out more than half of all the opioid prescriptions in the city were abused. And 3 other North Carolina cities were in the top 25. And that's just one report. So North Carolina doesn't have a lot of treatment options, and that's one of the things we've been addressing in the opioid epidemic. Was once we find out these people have an addiction, we have to do something about treating them. And although we're more than happy to prescribe the medication, many physicians don't want to treat the fact that they have an addict on their hands. The NFL is one of the places where prescription has for opiates has made headlines with people lately. People are often unsure what to look for and how to respond to the developing addiction. And excuse me, I'm not bringing this up as any kind of a connection with opiate addiction, but Dwight Clark, who was with the 49ers, and he used to come up here all the time to play in the Canocti golf tournament, has just been diagnosed with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. I have no idea whether Dwight ever took opiates or not, but he is pretty sure there's a connection between playing football and the ALS diagnosis. And if you're not familiar with Lou Gehrig's disease, it's a terminal disease, and it starts paralyzing usually your lower extremities first, and sometimes your arms, and then eventually gets to your respiratory system, your lungs, and by now you're almost a quadriplegic, and eventually you can't breathe. And there are treatments that can slow down the speed of what ALS does, but if you've known Dwight, and he was in the era playing when I had my bar done with Dwight Clark and Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and all those people that our kids don't even know exist anymore.
Boy, I know.
And he was quite an ambassador for San Francisco and the NFL. But back to the opiate things, we have to do something to stop this abuse. And I know how long we've talked about it. This family that had lost their son had planned a fun trip to Florida that summer to see their son, and him and his mom talked about maybe coming or going to a comedy club, and it would be nice to see him back on the surfboard. So they took a surfboard down to him, and a Honda Civic, that was his car. But instead, when they got down there, he was deceased. They had to drive the car and the surfboard back to North Carolina. Over the past several months, they've tried to raise awareness, provide support, and ask for changes. I think in his case, he actually took what he thought was heroin. It was fentanyl as well, and died of an overdose. This parent said she'd been to many funerals for victims of opiate overdoses, and she thinks all of them, including the funeral of her son, could have been prevented. And what it's going to take, and a lot of this has to do with education. For all of my grandkids, Paul, and your son is going to be an athlete. We were athletes. And I think the message to physicians today is to slow down about prescribing opiates. In some states, they will only allow a 5-day supply. So when you get hurt, or even after you've had surgery, 5 days is all you get. And then you rely on anti-inflammatories or something like that to help get you through the injury. I think part of it is when we do get hurt, we think because the physician gives us a 30-day supply. We think it's going to take all that, and they will say, if come back and see us in a month, I'll give you another prescription. If this doesn't work, we'll increase the dose. And you have no idea what kind of pain you're looking at. So you just expect, if you don't, and you have pain, these don't completely obliterate the pain. So you kind of buy into that program. Now we have to tell people, including people who go to a dentist and have several teeth extracted, people that have open heart surgery, people that have shoulder replacement, hip replacements, broken femurs, all those kind of things, that you're only going to get pain medication for so long. Well, physicians have started using excuse me, the excuse that insurance companies are not going to pay for it anymore, and they aren't paying for it. If I'm from that other end, and if they don't pay for it, people are more than willing to pay for it, unless they're on workman's comp, and then they expect workman's comp to pay for it. The problem, if you're on my end from workman's comp, is they don't pay for it. We lose money on almost every oxycodone or hydrocodone prescription that we sell because workman's comp says, we're not going to pay you the full cost of the medication. And workman comp has an issue that if you don't take the ones you lose money on, you will not get the ones that you make money on. Well, I just had my conference call with the board this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning from the East Coast, and there are fewer and fewer prescriptions that pharmacies make money on now, and if it wasn't for being in co-ops as we are, you wouldn't make money at all. And I know that's very difficult for a lot of you to hear. We had prescriptions yesterday for people with as many as 10 pills or 10-day supply of Eliquis, which was a anti-blood clotting medication that you don't have to take a ProTime with, and it was over $100. And that was our cost. And if we ran it through the insurance company, that was their copay. So these drugs, and I'll talk about another one here when we get off the opiate thing, have become very difficult to get and very expensive to get. And so if you do pay cash for them, it's cheaper, and I'm not putting this out there to induce anybody into getting heroin, but heroin is much cheaper than buying prescription medication for pain. It's illegal. You can go to prison. You probably will die. Excuse me. Even if you're taking fentanyl or oxycodone, and you think you're getting that, and now they're lacing these pills with fentanyl, which is much stronger than morphine, and new drugs out that take the place of that, you become highly addicted. And then, say you go to rehab, you get out of rehab, and you're doing fine for 6 weeks, and all of a sudden you want to go back to your old ways. If you start taking the same dose of an opiate that you took before you went to rehab, it'll probably kill you because you don't have the tolerance build up for it. So who would have thought that this country of ours would be so wrapped up in being addicted to pain medication that it's the #1 health crisis in the country? And we are the worst. If you'll look at a seminar that I went to about a month ago, it's the white areas of the country. This isn't an ethnicity thing. These are white people that don't live in the ghettos, that are working people, that are high school kids, college kids, professional sports people. Really a crisis in this country. So we have to do what we can to go to treatments with these people and give them Narcan for if they've overdosed, and the state of California requires no prescription for that, my pharmacists are all licensed to dispense Narcan or naltrexone, and we try to do what we can to save people, as well as treat them with medication to reverse their addiction. And sometimes that takes years. A drug called buprenorphine or Butrans that's in a patch is one of the drugs that we substitute to get you through these. And if you find out that you're on these medications and you can't seem to get off of them or don't think you can, talk to your doctor and talk to your pharmacist, and we'll be able to give you a step-down approach to decrease the dose all the time and get you off of it. And if many of you are taking muscle relaxants or benzodiazepines like Xanax or Ativan or something similar to that, that addiction is even worse than the opiate addiction because it takes longer. I think I've mentioned on this show several times my brother-in-law was in the Secret Service until he retired, and one of his jobs was to take Betty Ford, who was Gerald Ford, President Ford's wife, and she was addicted to Valium, which is a benzodiazepine. And she started the Betty Ford Clinic in Palm Springs. And my brother-in-law was with her when she was going through withdrawal. It took several days, and it was very painful to watch, very painful to go through. Much worse of an addiction as far as with this withdrawal than the opiates are. So just be aware that this is going to be in the news for until this thing turns around for opiate addiction, and it's going to be in your community, in your family. Pretty soon you'll start noticing if you are on any of these medications and it's in your drug cabinet, it'll start disappearing. People are breaking into homes and taking it. We're going to institute a waste disposal program for prescription medicines, so people want to save that medication when they're taken off of it. They need to get rid of it because you become a high risk to have people break into your home, especially if they know you're taking it. And remember, there's a lot of medical things that have been compromised by people getting into your computers. So it's not necessarily, if you have a telephone and you do your prescription fills on the telephone or the computer, there's a chances that somebody has gotten into that and knows that. I'm not trying to alarm you, but this our phone now is a mini computer, and if anybody has the ability to get in there and scan the information, you're certainly at risk for those things. So I just want to emphasize how tough this addiction thing is and how alert you need to be, and you need to try the best you can to alleviate taking that kind of medication. I've had 9 surgeries since I've been in Lake County, 4 back surgeries, I can't remember, an ankle, a femur, a shoulder, I can't remember what else. But I've had the temptation in all those times, plus cancer, to take medications to alleviate the pain. I happen to be a registered pharmacist. I can't do that and function and work. And although some people do, and unfortunately these medications were actually prescribed at one time, the OxyContin, so you could take them and function, but it was for terminal pain. We started using it for other kinds of pain. So don't be afraid to call your pharmacist or your physician and talk about it if you're taking it. Don't be afraid to discontinue it If you're taking it for arthritis or you're taking it for a terminal medication, that's going to be overlooked. That is excusable, that's tolerable for you to take it. If you have a terminal disease, nobody's going to keep you from getting that. So that's an exception. But the rest of us who wake up every morning and we don't feel so good. I mean, right now I have a torn meniscus in my knee, and they want to take a steel plate out of my leg, and I'm just not going to do it. I don't feel like I am at risk of that much pain, and I'd rather deal with the pain than go under anesthesia and have a surgery that I can probably do without. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about atrial fib and how physical fitness can affect that. Have you been to a pharmacy recently where the employees know your name when you walk in the door and have your prescription refill waiting? If you answer no, then you probably haven't been to one of Northlake Medical Pharmacies. Hi, my name is Bill Kearney, owner of Northlake Medical Pharmacies. For 37 years, my wife Dana, our daughter Brandy, and our employees have been dedicated to giving you the best service we have when you come to get your prescriptions. We are a family-owned pharmacy, and our employees are members of the Northlake Medical Pharmacies family. We know you have a choice when you get your prescriptions filled, and we appreciate you making us your choice. You see, you are part of our family too. We truly care about your health and taking care of you when you aren't feeling well. We deliver your prescriptions free when we know ahead of time and do the best we can to take care of you and your family. Northlake Medical Pharmacies, with 2 locations for you, on Hill Road across from Sutter Lakeside Hospital and outside the Bruno Shops Mart in Lakeport.
I believe that home is where your pet is, and that loving an animal means never giving up on them, never letting them go.
I believe that when you adopt an animal from a shelter, you are saving not only one, but many lives.
And that when you spay or neuter your dogs and cats, you help decrease the number of homeless animals.
I believe it's time we do all we can to save the lives of homeless dogs and cats who are counting on us, because every dog and cat deserves a place to call home.
I believe that I found my best friend in a shelter, and that you can too. I'm Lisa Edelstein. I believe.
I'm Emmy Lou Harris. I believe.
I'm James Avery. I believe.
I'm Travis Clark. We believe that together with Best Friends Animal Society,
We can bring about a time when there are no more homeless pets.
please visit our website at ambassadors.bestfriends.org to find out more.
Paralyzed Veterans of America, National Service Officers.
We've got an entire generation of men and women who have seen war. They're going to need voices.
Paralyzed Veterans of America represents them.
We're going to make sure that the Veterans Affairs gives them everything that they're entitled to.
Get all the health care they need.
Making a person's house adaptable.
And we also focus on getting them a job.
We help our veterans for free.
Changing lives, building futures. That's Paralyzed Veterans of America. To learn more, visit PVA.org. A public service message from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Imagine crossing a street busy with traffic, against the light.
Watch where you're going!
Wearing a blindfold. Would you do this? Probably not. It's one risk obviously not worth taking. Some risks aren't as obvious, yet could be just as deadly, like the risk for type 2 diabetes. If you're overweight or over 45, if you're not very active, or don't eat as healthy as you should, there's an easy test you can take to find out your risk. It's free, and in less than a minute, you'll know if you're at risk for this deadly disease. Just go to diabetes.org/take-the-test or call 1-800-DIABETES. Because type 2 diabetes is one risk you can't afford to take. Take the diabetes risk test and stop diabetes before it stops you. A message from the American Diabetes Association.
Okay, we're back here on Health Talk, AM 1270 and 96.5 FM, KXBX.
Well, Paul, this is way ahead of you as far as having a risk, although we're finding more and more younger people have atrial fibrillation. Mm-hmm. And I just assumed that as the harder you worked out, the better health you were in, and the risk of atrial fibrillation goes down. And atrial fibrillation is really a heart rhythm disorder that's increasingly common with age. Blood clots are caused by atrial fib and can travel to the brain, and then they become strokes. But the Mayo Clinic did an atrial fibrillation risk study in about 6,000 military veterans, and it turns out the fitter the person, the lower the risk of developing atrial fib, up to a point. Compared with the least fit, the risk of AFib in those 65 and older declined by 25% in those who were moderately fit, by 41% in those who were fit, and by 59% in those who were highly fit. But in this study, the highly fit people were people who regularly did moderate to vigorous exercises, such as jogging, swimming, or running, bicycling at a fast clip, stair climbing. But in the past, the research had indicated that those who routinely participate in extremely high levels of endurance exercise and athletic competition, we're talking about the Ironman type of things. I know you probably have competed in.
Oh, yeah. You know me.
One of my pharmacists is over there, I think right now, Mike Murray, competing in the Ironman in Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
And another one of his friends. But there's an elevated risk of developing AFib if you're an high-level endurance exerciser. So that still appears to be true. It's not known at what point that increased exercise becomes so intense that it erodes the benefit. But and the vast majority of us that work out, and I swim a mile a day. I'm back in the pool again. I tried to swim over in Hawaii, and the waves were so bad they were knocking me against the rocks. And but most of us don't have to worry about high endurance exercising and in terms of increasing our AFib risk. Instead, there's huge benefits to be gained from exercise in overall health, heart health, and atrial fibrillation. And we've talked about AFib before. It seems like more and more people get it. And it appears to be related to a lot less people working out as and of course our age group has continued to increase, so people are living longer, and as they age more, they're not able to exercise as much and become more susceptible to AFib. AFib can be controlled by most of the time by medication. It also can be done by an electronic process that actually kills some cells around your heart that causes your heart not to fill completely. So just be aware that don't use I can't exercise too much because I might induce AFib, because we know better than that. In the opiate epidemic, I just can't give up on this because there's such a short time span for a patient's addiction. And if you just come out of surgery and you're suffering from chronic pain, you probably will get a medication like opiates. And if they you get your hand on a second dose, 1 out of 7 will form an addiction. In the event that patients must take a long-acting opiate, about 25% will still be using the drug a year later. So, excuse me. Needless to say, the opiate addiction in America is an epidemic, and we need to do whatever we can to be a leader and take the action in doing that, whether it's a process in your family or a process through the health industry. There's a new ad on television. I've seen it several times, and just recently, and I was intrigued by it because it was a talk about a drug that prevented heart attack in high-risk patients. And it's called Repatha, and it cuts cholesterol levels to way, way lower than you could ever imagine being. And it's a treatment that doctors hope will prevent future heart attacks or a stroke in high-risk patients. The problem with it, which they don't tell you on television, it's $14,000 a year. It's an injectable drug. It appears to cut the bad cholesterol, the LDL, to extremely low levels, more than statins or lifestyle changes in people who have had prior heart attacks or were at a high risk. The difficult thing about this, when you see the ad on television, you say, this is something I want. I don't happen to have an LDL problem. I have, my good cholesterol is too low. But people who had prior heart attacks are at higher risk, and more than 27,000 heart patients in 49 countries were followed by 2 years in the largest study they've ever done. And it's a big deal for patients. The strange thing about it is it wasn't clear whether cutting the LDL blood cholesterol to extremely low levels, and I'm talking from a 92 down to a 30, something that's usually almost impossible to do with medication. It wasn't clear whether those low levels would protect against further heart attacks or strokes, and that was their whole purpose. And that's, I don't know how they're able to advertise that this medication is going to be a new drug that will help prevent future heart attacks or strokes in high-risk patients. Because although it lowered their cholesterol from 92 to 30, something that's almost impossible to do, the drug decreased heart attacks and stroke by 20%, but it didn't increase their mortality. They still died. Even patients who started with a relatively low LDL were shown to benefit from the additional drop. The benefit began 6 months. Now this, excuse me, is an injectable medication, and I think you have to take it twice a week or twice a month. It was 6 months before the drug started taking effect, and it lasted and increased the longer the patients took it. So it was also relatively safe with few heart attacks. It could be life-changing for millions of people with coronary artery disease. Once a patient has a heart attack, they are at an increased risk for having another before they die. And after a heart attack, many people are never the same, so there's a benefit in preventing a heart attack. In this last study, it demonstrated sizable reductions in future heart attacks and stroke, but the trial didn't show that people were less likely to die. So here we have a drug that costs $14,000 a year. And it's an expensive drug compared to widely used statins like Lipitor. And we dispense a lot of Lipitor, a lot of statins in our pharmacies. And most people, it's been very effective at lowering their HDL. There is a new standard of practice that was developed about 2 years ago that once you've had a heart attack and you're discharged from the hospital, discharge you with up to 80 milligrams of atorvastatin or Lipitor. That used to be prohibitive as far as cost goes. It's generic now and it's quite inexpensive. Lipitor costs in the low hundreds of dollars annually if you even take the strongest strength. So as a result, we're kind of concerned about insurers covering the huge costs, but doctors are hopeful that the results of this study may lead to new guidelines regarding the treatment of high-risk patients. It's an injection, which some patients may find inconvenient or unpleasant compared with the pill, but there's definite data that by adding it to a background of statin therapy, they can improve the cardiovascular outcomes and do safely. However, that one sentence bothers me. It demonstrated sizable reductions in future heart attacks and strokes, but it didn't show that people were less likely to die. Now, it didn't say less likely to die of cardiac arrest or a stroke. It said less likely to die. Well, isn't that our reason for taking the treatment to start with? So just be aware there's something new out there. The advertisement is pretty impressive on television. There are high risks with side effects, even though this report from marketing doesn't show that. Just be aware there's a cost to this kind of medication. And, you know, we see more and more coupons by manufacturers of getting these kind of drugs into your system without any copay or a low copay. We make no money on those prescriptions. We are allowed to dispense it for you. The coupon brings the cost down considerably. Whether or not some of these drugs are needed or not is controversial. Remember, this is like buying a house or a car. You always need another one, you know. So there's always one that's a little bit more convenient, quite a bit more expensive, probably has more side effects, but a lot more easier as far as compliance goes. In this case, the compliance issue is a big one because you have to, I assume, inject yourself. If you have a physician, then you're paying for a physician's office visit as well as him giving you the dose, or her. So the name of it's Repatha. You'll see the ads on primetime television because that's the only thing that I get home in time enough to see, and I've seen it several times just since I got back. So I hate to bring this up again, but don't text and drive. It was amazing how many people that I saw in Hawaii that were texting. I didn't see, the 2 weeks I was there, I saw 3 police cars. And this was in Lihue, and where the airport is in Kauai, and also at the point of Poipu, which is the southern side of the island where it's drier. And the speed limit is fairly low in Hawaii, but everybody it's against the law to text, but you might think the warnings and dangers of texting while driving apply mostly to young drivers. Believe me, most recent reports suggest that texting may be even more distracting for older adults than younger ones. They're looking at their doctor's appointments. They're looking at their GPS to see where their doctor's office is. Texting or using your cell phone and driving just aren't compatible activities to do simultaneously while you're driving. The National Safety Council estimates that cell phone use while driving causes approximately 1/4 of all crashes every year. When I went down to the airport in Oakland to leave, it took me 4.5 hours to get to Oakland from Lake County.
Because of traffic.
Because the traffic was so bad. And the more traffic you got into, the more people were on their cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd come up behind a car and not be paying attention. And that happened to me a couple of years ago when I was going to a Giants game, and we were going to catch the boat over in Vallejo and go to the Giants game, and a guy came right up behind me on 29 and hit me hard. And I had 4 people in the car. So, but I really saw it down there during we left about 2:30. We got into Napa about 4, and from there on it was just bumper to bumper. And if you think your GPS is going to help you, the hotel we were staying at was on Hagenberger Road, but we didn't know that. It was right off Hagenberger Road. So it took us through downtown Oakland, under the bridges where all the homeless were.
Oh, yeah.
Back around, I mean, we could have been there an hour sooner just by going down the freeway and getting on Hagenberger. So just be careful about doing that and having people text. And, you know, my son-in-law was going down to Santa Cruz a couple of weeks ago, and he got in traffic like that, and he was trying to find out where to turn off. And my daughter had the phone, and she couldn't find it. So he took the phone while they were stopped in traffic. Highway patrolman was sitting right on the edge, and it cost him $375.
Wow.
He said, you know, he said, I wasn't. I was just holding it up. And he said, yeah, sure you were. But he was nailing everybody that was in that Santa Cruz traffic, just one by one. They were all on their phones. And, I mean, many people in my car, you don't have to pick the phone up. It comes right through the radio speaker. So you take yourself out of the risk. But
or you can get one of those things that mounts to your windshield or your dashboard that holds the phone, so you don't have to actually hold it.
Right.
And those are legal, too. Those are okay.
A lot of people have been asking about antibacterial soaps that are not recommended anymore. And there's really no reason to use, we're talking about hexachlorophene type things, and while they're no more effective than plain soap in getting rid of germs, but there's a antibacterial in it called triclosan, and many people purchase antibacterial products hoping they will help prevent illness and infection. But there's also a concern that using these soaps might contribute to the development of bacteria that are resistant to it. So just like taking antibiotics way too long or too often, the same thing happens with these antibacterial soaps. So this doesn't apply to sanitizers, which can be an acceptable alternative when there isn't soap and water available. But as long as the sanitizer is at least 60% alcohol, it doesn't apply to them. So given the lack of validation and the concern about negative health effects, the FDA issued a final rule in 2016 that most antibacterial active ingredients, including this triclosan or triclocarbon, are generally not recognized as safe and effective. So regular soaps work just fine and aren't a problem and are just as effective, if not more effective, than the other kinds of soaps that used to be out there, the antibacterial. You know, I'm kind of amazed about how much cancer is around, and I'm thinking there's some of it that's linked to obesity. And there was an article in the Mayo Clinic about the increased risk that was conducted by a cancer research team of 1,000 studies on cancer risks and excess body fat. And although most of the studies were observational, meaning they can't cause proven effect, there was definitely evidence to link obesity to an increased risk of types of cancer, especially colorectal cancer, cancer of the esophagus, kidney cancer, breast cancer, and uterine cancer. So the results were generally consistent across regions and showed little difference among men and women. In addition, the research shows that obesity affects the risk of cancer and also results in poor treatment outcomes. So fat cells, for some reason, are just metabolically active units that initiate chemical reactions which attract these cancer halogens and fat cells produce a variety of hormones, including estrogens and leptin, which may promote certain types of tumor growth. Another factor may be increased by levels of insulin, which is something that a lot of obese people who have diabetes take. And then what do you do? We always say exercise and diet and exercise. Evidence suggests that every overweight adult lost a couple of pounds, or if they avoided gaining extra weight, hundreds of thousands of cases of cancer could be prevented. So maintaining a healthy weight is not something new. I fought weight all my life. I'll never be skinny. But I weigh, at the top of my weight, I weighed 245 pounds. I weigh 180 now. So, and I feel much better about exercising, and that's one of the things that prohibit a lot of people from exercising is their weight. And carrying the right amount of weight for your body frame can help increase your independence and mobility, improve sleep. There are many ways to eat well and keep a healthy weight without really being on a diet. Instead of processed foods, and engaging in more physical activity every day is a good way to start. This isn't anything that I haven't told you before. And it's something that, that people, I guess we just need to keep pounding it into you, because as we age, I was going through this with somebody the other day, and I said, you know, we've never been old before. We don't know. My father died when he was 65. My mother died when she was 94, but I wasn't living at home. And so our patients that we see every day that are more of a risk for dying as they continue to age give us some form of education, but we don't know what that feels like. Now more than ever, people are living longer, and they're beginning to feel like, you know, what it is to be old. And they don't like it. They don't want to hurt. They want to take medication. As we've talked about many times, there are so many people taking medications that don't really have to. And there are alternatives to a lot of those medications, but we just keep adding more on and more on and more on until we get every kind of symptom that you have alleviated. And we don't think about the side effects very often of what's going to happen. Is it affecting our memory? Is it causing us indigestion? Is it increasing our heart rate? Is it slowing our heart rate so down so much that we're not sleeping, or we're sleeping all the time? So all of these medications, although that's my profession, can be addressed as far as what can we do. And as we get older, that list of medications begins to increase. We just saw a new report from Partnership Health that's coming out in July of this year about things that they want pharmacists to interact on. And some of that is removing medications by as much as 50% on people over 65 years old. That I'm not talking about thyroid medication, or I'm not talking about so much medication that actually changes the way you think, like psychotropic medications like Abilify and those kind of meds. But we're finding a lot of those meds are used for things they never were designed to be used for. And as we age, that starts to change. We had a patient the other day that was prescribed Reglan, which is a metoclopramide, and it's a drug that stops the movement of food in your intestinal tract, or slows it down. Moves it down a little bit so you're not getting esophageal reflux, and moves it down so that acid is not coming up. Well, one of the side effects of that medication can be tremors. Quite small percentage, but we have a lot of people in skilled nursing facilities that take that drug that get a tremor, and perhaps they have Parkinson's-like tremors already, and then they start getting that, and it just makes it worse. And sometimes a medication that's prescribed can make the side effects so bad, so your condition that you're treating, your lifestyle, has decreased, so the side effects make it worse than it was before. As we become older, we're looking at quality of life. Not so much quantity of life as we are quality of life. And a lot of people don't understand why they're living to be 90 years old or 100 years old. I have a friend that will be 100 years old on Saturday. And pretty sharp guy. Probably has felt better in his 100 years than he feels right now. But he's going to make it. And but you know, he's experiencing things at 100 years old that he never felt before. And this guy was a hard-working person that worked up until the time he was 90. And that's what's happening to us. So as we continue to age, those things become more prevalent in us living our life, and we have to decide what's most important, quality of life or quantity of life. We're still doing immunizations, and as well as reducing the amount of medications that you take. The Partnership Health has asked us to make sure that as we see adults, we make sure they're immunized against pneumonia with 2 shots, a tetanus, and for pertussis or whooping cough, and also for flu vaccines. So those are all things that put us at risk, and we do many other medications. In fact, this week so far, just in my store and the one in Bruno's, we've done 5 Zostavax shots, which are for shingles. And as you age, that risk of having shingles or that virus becomes increasingly higher percentage that you're going to eventually get that. So you don't want to go through that process if at all possible. We're hoping that Medicare D will start approving the Zostavax shot because it's $200 if your insurance doesn't pay for it. Now, lots of insurances do. So if you're over 60 years old and you want to prevent yourself from getting shingles by 60 to 70%, then decrease the chance of risk of you acquiring that, then come see us. We'll run your prescription. You don't need a prescription, by the way. A pharmacist in California can write the prescription for your medication, for your injectable medication. And we'll run it through your insurance. Most insurances require you to be 60. Some allow you to be 50 and take it. It's only good for about 8 years. Now I'm telling people 2025. There should be a new Zostavax immunization out in the next 2 years. They don't suggest getting a booster shot right now if you've had it. You've had the immunization for more than 8 years. They said it doesn't do any good to retake the shot. So, and we haven't seen an acceleration of people that have had the immunization of getting it. So, well, our time's up. We'd like to remind you we're Northlake Medical Pharmacies with 2 locations for you at 5136 Hill Road East across from Sutter Lakeside Hospital. Call us there at 263-6192. And outside the Bruno, Shop Smart at 347 Lakeport Boulevard. Give us a call there at 263-1328. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Bill. We'll see everybody back here again next Wednesday for Health Talk on AM 1270, 96.5 FM, KXVX.